What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch back here with another fantasy football stardom and situm for week number 12 of the NFL season. We have 2 weeks to go until the fantasy football playoffs. I'm super excited to help you guys win and get into the fantasy playoffs, or hold your spot in the fantasy playoffs and ultimately get you those fantasy championships. If you have any questions, make sure you leave those comments below and I can help you with your start and situations or any sort of fantasy questions you have moving forward into the fantasy playoffs and beyond. So let's get into it. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It's Mitch of the Bottom Line View. Let's go. All right, quarterback starts. Tom Brady, the GOAT, Thomas Edward Brady Jr., he is back off the bye, and I think he's really ready to go. I think the New England Patriots are ready to go. And Tom Brady, he's averaging 24.2 fantasy points per game in his past 5 outings against the Jets. He does very well against the Jets for fantasy purposes, and I know Tom Brady's been a little bit rough lately, but that's no really big reason to count out Tom Brady coming out of the bye. He has Rob Gronkowski back and healthy. He should have his best offensive lineman, Shaq Mason, back and healthy. Sony Michel back and healthy. Edelman, Gordon, and every single time those players have played on the field at the same time, they've scored at least 38 points. So that being said, the Patriots are ready to go off this bye, and they're healthy, and that's huge for Tom Brady. I expect him to have a big game this week against the Jets. Lamar Jackson, he's playing Oakland. They're 31st against the run. They suck. Lamar ran 27 times last week, and we could see him run for 20 or more this week once again. I just really like his athleticism, and Oakland's not going to have an answer for it. Baker Mayfield, he scored at least 21 fantasy points in 3 of his past 4 games. There is no player that wants to beat Hugh Jackson more than this man. The Bengals are awful on defense. They suck, they're injured, and just play Browns. Eli Manning. Yes, I know, Eli Manning, again, he's on this list, but I can't. He just has all these great matchups, and he's actually playing well. Over the last couple of weeks, he's been playing well. And the Eagles, they're 27th versus the pass this year. And not only are they 27th versus the pass, but now they have their corners out. I mean, their first corner's out, their second corner's out, I think their third corner's out. I think they're down to Crevon LeBlanc, who they picked off free agency. They have Rasir Douglas back there. I don't even know half these guys that are playing in their secondary. That being said, Odell's going to have a huge game. Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, these guys are going to go off. Jameis Winston, his opponent, the 49ers, have allowed 8 of the past 10 quarterbacks who have played against them to score at least 20 fantasy points. So, that being said, man, this is a very consistent start. Whoever plays the 49ers is going to be at least okay for you. So, that being said, Jameis Winston, when he's on, he's really on. I know he can throw some interceptions. Turnovers in general are a problem for Jameis Winston, and even getting pulled is sort of in the back of your mind. But the Bucs are favored in this game. They're expected to win. I think they'll win, and I think they'll have to be in a shootout to win. So that being said, Winston's going to have a big week. Quarterback sits. Now, I think that Phillip Rivers is not really a sit, but just be, a little aware, okay? So, Phillip Rivers. Arizona is number 5 in pass defense DVOA, number 4 in pass yards allowed. They're actually number 2 in fantasy points given up versus the quarterback position. They're really good against the pass. Patrick Mahomes actually had one of his worst weeks against the Cardinals just 2 weeks back. Phillip Rivers, without possibly Melvin Gordon, I don't love him against the Cardinals this week. Derek Carr, he plays the Ravens defense. They're really good, and they're at home. And Derek Carr has been super inconsistent. Can't count on him. Ryan Tannehill, back from injury, but he's on the road. He's playing a hot Colts team. They're really riding some big momentum, and he's going to have to catch up to Andrew Luck in this game. I just think Ryan Tannehill is going to be in a bad situation from play 1 in this one. Marcus Mariota, is he even going to play? And if he does play, the Texans are tough. They're 5th in points. They're 8th against the pass. They stuff the run, and Marcus Mariota, everything in that offense comes through the run game. I just don't like Mariota, and if he doesn't even play, that just means he's a terrible pickup in general. Deshaun Watson, in his 5 games in a row, he has failed to top 239 passing yards, so 240 plus. And he was held to fewer than 200 yards twice in that stretch. So Deshaun Watson has struggled to really throw for a lot of yards and have big games. And I think that's going to continue against the Titans. I do think the Texans will win this game, but it's not going to come easy against a tough Titans defense. Deshaun Watson will be under a lot of pressure, and I just don't love it with only really DeAndre Hopkins to go to. Since Will Fuller's been out, this offense has been very lackluster. Running back starts, Matt Breida. The Bucs have allowed the lead in the NFL in touchdowns allowed to running backs, 17. You can do the math on that. 17. And they've allowed 8 touchdowns to running backs in the past 4 games. You could definitely see him score multiple touchdowns. They're going to need to be in a shootout in this game. They're going to need to definitely score. And with Kyle Shanahan, it's all about dictating the pace of play, running the football, and using your play action. And Matt Breida's the sole focus of this offense. Marlon Mack's playing the Dolphins, and the Dolphins have surrendered almost 5 yards per rush and over 30 fantasy points on the road this season. Mack, I wouldn't be surprised if he got in twice into the end zone this week. Nick Chubb, he's playing Cincinnati. Again, they suck. They're terrible. Start everybody against Cincinnati, okay? 5.2 yards per rush, 6 touchdowns to opposing running backs since week 8. Nick Chubb has the ability to take any football to the house. Gus Edwards. Raiders have allowed 11 running backs to either score or gain 100 total yards. So if you do that math, there's been 11 weeks. I don't know if the Raiders have had a bye yet. I don't know, to be honest. I don't remember, I should say. So even 4 weeks in a row, rather 100 yards or a touchdown. So probably going to be a decent week for Gus Edwards. I don't know. Sony Michel. He plays the Jets. I think Sony Michel is going to be back ready and healthy, and they have allowed running backs to score in 3 of the past 4 games. I like the odds for Michel to get in the end zone, not once, but possibly even twice. Running back sits, Doug Martin. He plays the Ravens. They're first in points allowed, and they're also 4th against the run. Very stout up front. He's not going anywhere. Aaron Jones, 5th against in rushing yards is the Minnesota Vikings, and at home they're even tougher. Jones has been really good lately, but I don't see him having a great game against the Vikings. Dion Lewis is playing those Texans, very tough defense. If Marcus Mariota's out, that's even worse. If he is in, I still don't like the prospect of Lewis this week. LaShawn McCoy, he plays Jacksonville, and they've only allowed 5 touchdowns to running backs this year. Isaiah Crowell has gone 5 games in a row with 60 total yards or less. This week, I don't see the Jets running the ball a lot because they're going to be down by a lot of points, most likely. Wide receiver starts. Sterling Shepard. You can see Eli, okay? Basically, the Eagles don't have any corners. So if they're playing the high school corner down the street against Sterling Shepard, it's probably not a good matchup. Julian Edelman plays the Jets, and the Jets have allowed 9 touchdowns, the 4th most yards and the 2nd most fantasy points to slot receivers. DJ Moore, he's the number 1 wide receiver this week against the Seattle Seahawks. No Devin Funchess. Time to step up for DJ Moore, and he has. And the Panthers are really great at home. I expect him to score in this game. Boyd plays the Browns. The Browns are 30th versus the pass, and this could be the week for him. I don't really see a guy that can really clearly cover him, specifically out of the slot, and if A.J. Green is back, that's even better. T.Y. Hilton, okay? T.Y. He's going to score in this game. He's on fire. Luck's on fire. I love all the Colts. Wide receiver sits. Baltimore wide receivers last week. The Ravens ran 74% of the time. This is 1964 football, okay? The Ravens don't really run the ball that much with Lamar Jackson, so until I see them do that, I can't start John Brown, I can't start Michael Crabtree, I can't start Willie Snead for sure. Jags wide receivers, they're playing the Bills defense, which is actually very underrated, very good secondary, and the Jags, they have the worst quarterback in the history of quarterbacks. Davis plays the Houston Texans. The Houston defense held him to just 55 yards in week number 2, and there might be no Marcus Mariota. Larry Fitzgerald. The Chargers have surrendered the 5th fewest yards to receivers and only 2 scores, and the 3rd fewest fantasy points to slot receivers this season. Chargers secondary is very, very good and underrated, and I expect the Cardinals to probably force feed Fitzgerald, but it's just not going to be a nice day for him. Golden Tate. Okay, Tate, he's playing a Giants defense that has allowed the fewest fantasy points and hasn't given up a touchdown to a slot receiver. So, very good slot defense from the Giants. At least they do one thing well. Tight end starts. Gronk. Just do it. Mcdonald. 3 weeks in a row, a tight end has found the end zone against the Broncos. I think that's good enough for you considering the tight end position. And Mcdonald's been very solid. He has capability of big games. Cameron Brate. There have been 6 tight ends this year to either score or gain or at least 100 receiving yards against San Francisco. Brate is now the starting tight end for Tampa Bay. See ya, O.J. Howard. It's Brate time. The Broncos tight end. I want to say, to pronounce it, Heuerman. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. He plays the Steelers this week. He's been a target machine. And the Steelers have allowed 5 tight ends this year to either score or gain at least 70 receiving yards. Jack Doyle. The guy that sounds like he's from the 1950s. Yeah, him. You're going to play him this week because in their last 5 games, the Dolphins have surrendered 4 top 13 tight end finishes, even against some really bad guys like Jordan Thomas from the Texans. So that being said, Doyle should have a nice game this week, and I expect him to I expect the Colts to stay away from the Dolphins' corners more so, other than T.Y. Hilton's matchup, and attack the middle of the field because that's really where the weakness of the Dolphins lies. So I hope you guys enjoyed this fantasy football start and sit-em for week number 12. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe for more Bottom Line View. Also, leave your comments below in the comments section for any start and sit decisions or fantasy questions. Again, it's Mitch, and peace.